There's a reason pencils come with erasers. Not because we're meant to fail, but because we're meant to try again. This is the story of a boy who forgot that truth, and the teacher who reminded him with 6 simple words. His name was Marcus. Marcus was 16 years old, and he was terrified of being wrong. He sat in the back of every classroom. He never raised his hand. He never asked questions. Because asking questions meant admitting you didn't know, and not knowing meant being stupid. At least, that's what Marcus believed. He had learned this fear young. In 3rd grade, he answered a math problem wrong in front of the whole class. The other kids laughed. The teacher sighed, and something inside Marcus decided it was safer to stay silent than to risk being wrong again. So he disappeared. He became invisible. He passed his classes with average grades, not because he wasn't smart, but because he never tried hard enough to fail. He played it safe. He colored inside the lines. He erased every interesting idea before it could leave his pencil. Until Mr. Chun's class. Mr. Chun taught art. But not the kind of art where you copy pictures from a book. The kind where you create something that didn't exist before. The kind where there are no right answers. Only honest ones. On the first day, Mr. Chun gave every student a pencil. Not a regular pencil. A thick drawing pencil with a massive eraser on top. The eraser was bigger than the pencil itself. This, Mr. Chun said, holding up his own pencil, is the most important tool an artist has. Not the lead, the eraser. Marcus frowned. That didn't make sense. You draw with the lead. The eraser just fixes mistakes. Mr. Chun smiled like he could hear Marcus's thoughts. Your first assignment is simple. I want you to fill this entire page with mistakes. Draw something, erase it. Draw it again differently. Erase it. Keep going until your eraser is gone. You have 1 week. The only rule is this. You cannot get it right the first time. You must make mistakes on purpose. The class sat in confused silence. Make mistakes on purpose? What kind of assignment was that? Marcus stared at his blank page. For 3 days, every time he started to draw, his hand froze, because even making mistakes on purpose felt like failure. What if he made the wrong kind of mistake? What if his mistakes weren't good enough? On the 4th day, frustrated and running out of time, Marcus finally put pencil to paper. He drew a tree. It looked stiff and lifeless. He hated it, but instead of starting over on a new page, he erased it. Not completely, just enough to leave a ghost of the tree behind. Then he drew it again. Dan deafened, the branches reached further. He erased it again. Throw it again. This time the tree was smaller. The roots showed above the ground. It looked more alive. It kept going, erasing, redrawing, changing. Each version was different. Each version taught him something about what worked and what didn't. And slowly, something strange happened. Marcus stopped being afraid. Because he wasn't trying to get it perfect, he was just trying to get it different. By the end of the week, Marquis's eraser was gone, completely used up. His paper was gray with eraser marks, smudged with the ghosts of 20 different trees, and in the center, barely visible through all the history of mistakes, was one final tree. It wasn't perfect, but it was alive. It was honest. It was his. On Monday, Mr. Chun collected the assignments. He didn't grade them. He hung them on the wall. Every single one. A gallery of erasure. A museum of mistakes. Then he stood in front of the class and said 6 words that changed Marcus's life. Your mistakes are your best teacher. He pointed to Marcus's page. Look at this. You can see every choice Marcus made. Every version of the tree he tried. Every time he thought he was wrong and started again. This isn't a picture of a tree. This is a picture of learning. This is what growth looks like. Messy, gray, full of ghosts, and beautiful because of it, not despite it. Mr. Chun walked slowly along the wall of smudged papers. The people who never make mistakes aren't the people who get it right. They're the people who never try anything hard enough to get it wrong. They're the people who die with their erasers still full. And that's the real tragedy, not using up your eraser. He turned back to face the class. Every great artist, every inventor, every person who ever created something worth remembering. They didn't succeed because they never made mistakes. They succeeded because they made more mistakes than everyone else. They used up more erasers. They tried more versions. They weren't afraid to be wrong on the way to being right. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. All these years, he thought the eraser was for hiding his failures. But it wasn't. It was for giving him permission to try again. The next assignment, Marcus raised his hand. He asked a question. He got the answer wrong. And the world didn't end. He just tried again. In math class, he attempted the hard problems. He failed, most of them. But each failure showed him where his understanding broke down. Each mistake was a map showing him where to go next. In English, he wrote an essay with his real thoughts, not the safe ones he thought the teacher wanted. He got a B-, but the teacher wrote in red ink, "This is honest. Keep going." By the end of the year, Marcus's grades hadn't changed much, but everything else had. He wasn't afraid anymore. Not of being wrong. Not of looking stupid. Not of trying things that might not work. Because he finally understood what Mr. Chun was teaching. The eraser isn't the opposite of the pencil. It's the partner. You can't draw anything worth keeping without the courage to erase and try again. 10 years later, Marcus became an engineer. He designed bridges, and every bridge he designed, he drew first in pencil. He filled notebooks with versions that didn't work, calculations that failed, designs that collapsed under imaginary weight. He erased and redrew until his erasers wore down to nothing, and people would ask him, "How do you know which design is right?" And he would smile and say, "I don't. I just know which ones are wrong, and every wrong one brings me closer." Here's what Marcus learned in Mr. Chun's art class. Here's what the eraser teaches us all. Mistakes aren't the opposite of success. They're the road to it. Every time you get something wrong, you eliminate one path that doesn't work. Every failure is data. Every error is education. The only real mistake is not trying because you're afraid to be wrong. Your eraser isn't there to hide your failures. It's there to give you permission to keep trying. It's there to remind you that nothing worth creating comes out perfect the first time. It's there to tell you that the path from who you are to who you want to be is paved with versions of yourself that didn't quite work yet. So use it. Wear it down. Make mistakes big enough to need erasing. Try things you might get wrong. Raise your hand when you're not sure. Answer when you might be incorrect. Create when you don't know if it's good enough. Because the opposite of making mistakes isn't success. It's paralysis. It's dying with a full eraser and an empty page. It's never knowing what you could have drawn if you'd have been brave enough to draw it wrong first. The pencil draws, but the eraser gives you courage. So make your mistakes. Erase them. Try again. And keep going until your eraser is gone. That's when you'll know you've lived.